연지 제물도 능미장 몸을 모는 전부가 밖을 다른 감산도 실물도 돈바 투제 장라 기점살 대니션 집산 활로 잠바 존놈 초금 종 네 르잠바 존너 납게 잠당 한직도 름보치 납든지 득토네 양비 종지를 첨보네 쇼때 아르마 종에서 갈라와도 종든데 갈라와 데르 동때 사그네 종든데지 잡람고 시험사때 종든데라 남든 꼬라시네 름보치 득 저타와 도바데도 종든데라 몸버 캡때 몸버 캡네 쇼치도 코도 름보치 득 데도 परमात्मा दी मोला शांति चिमथी रंबोचे दिख दे तो चिक दे चरते चिक दे चरते रंबोचे दिख दे तोंसम जी तों चिंबन जी तंजी कम द तो तमचित केबर नौ तोंसम जी तों चिंबन जी तंद तो कम ची जान ते द जान रंबोचे दु चिंबो तेनी जी नौ ना नौ तोंसम जी तों चिंबन जी तंजी कम द ना री जरबो ररब कां तो यो पर नबा ता सिर जी र ता रब तां जान ता र तां जान चिंबो ता पुची nga ता दंबा ता रंबोचे र ता र नबो ता खोरी चिंबो 대덕 탐지정 럼보치 어득 쳔보 때니지 노나노 동섬지 동쳔보 직된지 감다나 잠수 쳔보 강다가 요발 남당 소당 치가당 장당 밥체당 집천당 러마 바파테 덕 탐지정 럼보치 어득 쳔보 때니지 노나노 동섬지 동쳔보 직된지 감다나 니마당 다와당 저밋 강당 까르미 즈당 헤르네당 리그네당 노진지네당 지자당 타마연당 남카당 먹음처당 도시지 언네당 겨보 쳔보 지연네당 종당 종질당 종들당 이런거당 겨보 쳔보 부정 그르지니 바요 바데당 탐지녀 럼보지 어득 쳔보 직베테니지 나나나오 좁진지 땡지 감 좁진지 땡나 산지 종던데 남지 출동바 강당 정화데도 럼보지 어득 쳔보데도 숑위 자자고 때네 존던데 데타위 춤주 쳔본돔 통네 탐자당 담빈 코르데 몸스르데 제르데 첨점 근에 예랑데 랍더 가장 가와당 예도 데와 케네 데브정 바라 숑사데 묵문 잠버 따장 코도 때네 르잠버 존노 꼼총 존네지 존던데 데타위 춤주 쳔본돔 통네 비모 예발 항아 살랍 찍데 존던데 갈라와데 록스 타르모 자르네 자르트드네 존던데라 츠즈 자반다도 감금브르토도 스탄장지 바밥민 다프터 양비 캔노 구바닥장 저네 바로르 침초니 게벨 레브스가 연든 잠수 호거마랑 게브종 제비 람틴 촐랍 샴스르로 스케웨 캠종전 비즈음저 쿄즈기시 데어럭샤베 잠초 랍스르 근장다 교지 추집 감칠 제침 쳔메드 제침 쳔멘조 때도 탐천 남칸데 이여나다 교지 주지 제침 정도 주지 야르엔조 남라 추지 노르장 자라 추르놈 랍듬 진케 돈놈 돈자바 추짐 존에 왕 추짐 존에 추르지르 촐람고 샴서 심바 말럭 바당 만치 말럭당 준도 탐천 jelly tinnim jongwa dalab me tsora podang shit jang gewa gerdig le jegang chitma zaji songor ton tawan kyoji dupong topchen rapta terne shanchim chorab jiwa manchu dewa ni de la tsorme de semdang yichi dewa met martag ngambi tsogor nam ganji tertoy martok 마숑 추지 저볼 함 몬섬다 랑섬 데바 추지 고르로 남마 보 랍도 제와 랑저 남도 랍도 고로 데체 꼼족숨 보 다자 니버탄 추지 꼼초 추지 락버 카운터와 데도 토바 맘치 스탁버 랍도 제 조너 제르가난 침 탈춤 만빔 초고 용던 겸소 호금 말랑 람구 셔금 차 Chance, chocolate, man, should there. Tell us some Tavan Chuchi, dog, to Shan Rat. Yondan jump so mang, Yondan jump so malang, Yondan jump so comalang, Langushang Tsar. Oh, yeah.
Today we continue our teaching on the Vimalakirti Sutra. We have already covered several sessions. We have completed 4 sessions. Those of you listening to these teachings should also prepare yourselves mentally. We will not teach too quickly, nor will we go too slowly. The ornament of the Mahayana Sutras has already taken 4 years to teach. This sutra will not be that slow. However, it will not be finished after just a few sessions either. When people first start attending the classes, everyone probably finds the Vimalakirti Sutra very engaging. You might think, let us go and listen to it, but as time goes on, especially for those who have never had the habit of studying, contemplating and practicing, and those who have never formed the habit of systematically receiving the Dharma, they may find that attending classes over the long term is not always so interesting to them. That is perfectly fine. We are not charging any fees for these teachings. If there were a fee and you missed a few sessions, you might feel that it was a bit of a waste. But here we are not charging a single penny. Still, we can see clearly who is attending the lessons, who is absent, and who is truly being diligent. Some people are genuinely putting in a great effort, including the times when we are teaching. It may be 3 or 4 in the morning for some places. Without proper diligence, that is genuinely difficult. Some people have shared their feedback with us, asking, why do you choose this time to teach? They even ask, are you deliberately making things hard for us? That is truly not our intention at all. But indeed, for me to teach from here, this is the only time that is convenient for me. There are many reasons for this schedule, so it probably cannot be changed. But regardless of the circumstances, the great majority of people are very diligent. They are extremely diligent. This is a fact that I know clearly. Whether it is those of you present here in person or those who are in various other places and receive the teaching through the internet, all of these people are especially attentive. For some people, they are at work exactly when we are teaching and genuinely cannot make it. They may spend the entire next day diligently catching up on the lessons. For other people, it may be due to health reasons, work reasons, or family reasons. Everyone's reasons are different. But by and large, people are very diligent. Receiving the Dharma truly requires a great deal of patience. Without enough patience, a Buddhist education is not so easily obtained. Perhaps some people feel that practicing Buddhism is just a matter of receiving an empowerment or a blessing or attending a Dharma ceremony, and that such things are enough. In reality, these are just one form of practice within Buddhism. To truly understand Buddhism, one would need to study it in somewhat more careful detail. This would involve studying at least 10 or more sutras or treatises. Then one will have a general understanding of the main teachings of Buddhism. Otherwise, most people think that practicing Buddhism means just taking refuge, attending a few Dharma ceremonies, reciting some mantras, or doing a bit of meditation. They think these simple activities are already sufficient to call themselves a Buddhist. Of course, we are not saying these people are not Buddhists, but a genuine Buddhist should have a relatively systematic approach to their study. They should go through the Dharma treatise by treatise and sutra by sutra. In the course of studying, sometimes there may be obvious gains, and sometimes there may not be any obvious gains. But over time, it will certainly bring benefit to one's mind stream, even if you have not undergone any particularly great change or experienced any immediately visible effects within one's own mind stream, which one may not yet be able to perceive. Wholesome roots will certainly have been planted. Once it passes through the ear, it forever becomes a seed of the path. If we hear the Dharma even once, and wholesome roots are planted in one's mind stream and in the alaya, then once the causes and conditions are complete, they will certainly blossom and bear fruit. And so even the merit of attending a single class is something that can never be exhausted in the slightest. Those who understand the principle that karma is unfailing will understand this truth. And so when we are studying the Dharma, we must approach it with a long-term perspective. We must approach it with a sense of perseverance. In the practice of Buddhism, it is exactly the same. Without patience and without perseverance, one cannot succeed in the practice. Some of us may start studying, but we cannot sustain the effort. Many things get interrupted partway through, perhaps because of time constraints or because of something else that comes up in the middle. Things become intermittent until in the end one cannot see things through to completion. That is a very regrettable thing. For many of us, no matter what difficulties we face, we must remain steadfast in the course of our studying. We need to draw upon our own determination. We need to draw upon our own commitment. With this commitment and your own determination, you can use these qualities as a form of healthy pressure on yourself. I sometimes observe that certain Western scholars and practitioners do not commit themselves easily at the very beginning. It is relatively difficult for them to make a formal commitment. They observe and they maintain a sense of questioning, but once they have recognized the value and once they truly accept the teachings, it is not easy for them to fall back. They will not simply give up in the middle for some minor reason. They do not casually decide, today I will study and today I will not. This is especially true when compared to some people in Asia. Of course, not all Westerners have such a stable mindset, but comparatively speaking, I sometimes see this quality among their scholars. I see this in universities as well. When people are studying Tibetan language or Tibetan research, most of them spend at least 10 to 20 years. They may even spend 20 to 30 years. Some spend 4 or 5 decades, or even 6 or 7 decades. They remain completely committed to one field and never give up. They persevere continuously until the very end. This kind of stability is genuinely important. So even if we are only listening to a single scripture, such as this Vimalakirti Sutra, we can use the experience to discover whether our own minds can remain stable. As Arya Nagarjuna says in the letter to a friend, the highest type of person is like words carved in stone. They are extremely firm and stable. Generally speaking, such words are not easily washed away. The middling type of person is like words drawn in the dust. When there is no great storm or upheaval, these words generally remain for a certain period of time. The ordinary common person is like patterns drawn on the surface of water. The patterns rise and fall, disappearing without a trace in no time. Therefore, we should learn from the highest type of mindset. Each person, through any single undertaking, whether it is listening to a scripture or studying a specific subject, can use that task to observe what their own mind stream is actually like. As I have mentioned before, some people are always just drifting. Their Buddhist study is drifting and their research is drifting. They are always unsettled, drifting here and there. They are like a fallen leaf in the wind. When the wild wind rises, that leaf may fly off to the east for a moment and then drift away to the west. It has no fixed position of its own. As human beings, we should at least have our own structure. Our practice must have a plan and our life must have a goal. In this way, I feel that such a person has principles. So through studying the Dharma, we also need to make adjustments in how we conduct ourselves. We must tame our own mind streams. Otherwise, we may never know what we are actually like. In this world, many people do not often have someone to point out a clear path for them. In this world of ours, which can be filled with darkness, or in this extremely complex and complicated social environment, to truly know one's own direction, it is indeed necessary to have the lamp of wisdom. It is greatly needed by everyone. Today we continue directly with the Vimalakirti Sutra. I think about this every day. In this lifetime, to have encountered such Mahayana Dharma and to be able to study it together with all of you means this precious human life has gained tremendous meaning. while we are still alive, even regarding just this one scripture. Even if we cannot study it many times and can only do so once, even just this one occasion of hearing or teaching it, I feel that obtaining this precious human life carries profound significance. Now let us continue directly with the text. As was mentioned before, at this magnificent assembly of the Buddha, 32,000 bodhisattvas had gathered. This concludes what was spoken of regarding the adornment of the Buddha land. The following passage then speaks of other aspects of this adornment, including the presence of many celestial beings. Present were also 10,000 Brahma kings. In Sanskrit, this name is Shikin, which translates to top-knot. The top-knot Brahma king refers to 10,000 such Brahma kings. This is in fact a specific name for a type of Brahma. These Brahma kings descended from the other four heavens to arrive at the place where the Buddha was in order to attend the class and receive the Dharma. Regarding the term other four heavens here, in the Tibetan text and also in Xuanzang's translation, it says the four great continents. They descended from those four continents. This is because the entire trichiliocosm is actually composed of many sets of four great continents. Regarding the Brahma kings we just mentioned, including those residing in the form realm and those in the heavenly realms above Mount Sumeru in various places, whether from the four continents or the four heavens, they all descended from those places to receive the Dharma in the presence of the Buddha. There were also 12,000 Indras present at the assembly. Indra generally resides within the range of Mount Sumeru. Some understand the concept of heaven as having two categories. One is the heaven located in the sky, and the other is the heaven located on the ground. Indra specifically resides at the summit of Mount Sumeru, and so these 12,000 Indras also descended from the other four heavens or four continents to come before the Buddha and receive the Dharma. So many celestial beings from the form realm and the desire realm also arrived at the location where the Buddha was present. These beings represent the celestial realm. One could say they represent the form realm and the desire realm. As for the formless realm, since those beings have no body, they are constantly in meditative absorption and could not come. Even if they came, there would be no way to see them, right? Is it possible for them to come or not? Were there any beings from the formless realm attending the class? It seems not. Is there anything about this in the Abhidharmakosha? They are always absorbed in that state, are they not? There is nothing much to say there. They lack the faculty of hearing wisdom, right? What does it say in the Kshitigarbha Sutra? Oh. Beings in the heaven of neither perception nor non-perception are noble beings, right? Noble beings can indeed attend the assembly, right? But do noble beings in that state possess a body or not? Perhaps having consciousness is sufficient for their presence. If having consciousness is enough, then you possess consciousness. As for the heaven of neither perception nor non-perception, surely those beings have no physical body. Otherwise it would not be called that specific heaven, right? In terms of appearance, do they have a body or not? In appearance there is none, yet in actuality there is a body. If that is so, then where is that body hidden? Well, I am not entirely sure. Perhaps they represent the form realm and the desire realm, as well as the formless realm. It is said that the Kshitigarbha Sutra contains some information on this. Beings from the formless realm also came to receive the Dharma or came to the human realm. That covers the descriptions of the celestial realm. There were also other devas present with great power and might. The heavens and the nagas should be listed separately. The others might include the four great kings, referring to those celestial beings of great power. Then we have the nagas. The nagas reside within their naga palaces. Nagas can be in the sky, on the earth, or below the ground. There are different types of nagas. Some are comparable to what we often call the azure dragon, possessing great miraculous powers. Some are the nagas of the naga palaces commonly spoken of. Many of us have probably seen dragons in Journey to the West. The Monkey King's Havoc in the Heavenly Palace. When I was in middle school, the most popular film was Havoc in Heaven, was it not? The divas and so forth. There were also also other celestial beings just mentioned. Then there are the yakshas. The yakshas actually float within empty space. They can also be referred to as yakshas. Formerly they did not observe pure precepts and later became celestial non-human beings. Some are like this. They guard the celestial gates and celestial cities. Then there are the Gandharvas. The Gandharvas are celestial musicians. In the celestial realms, they specialize in music. They have very gentle minds. These are beings endowed with great compassion. Then there are the Asuras. Asuras are also known as non-drinkers of alcohol. Among our Dharma protectors today, since some are human and some are non-human, some do not drink alcohol while others do. As for Asuras, they are also commonly called the non-drinking Devas. But as we often discuss regarding Asuras, some belong among the celestial beings. They are usually fond of fighting. The males are somewhat ugly and large in form, while the females are fairly attractive. Often their females are seized by celestial beings and they frequently go to war. This is also the case. So the so-called Asuras are non-celestial beings. The Abhidharmakosha discusses the 6 realms in some detail. Then we have the Garudas. Regarding the Garudas, they are mostly what is called the great golden-winged bird. The great golden-winged bird includes some categories of noble beings, as well as some categories of ordinary beings and spirits. They include beings born from wombs, eggs, moisture, and transformation. In different scriptures and treatises, the categories of Garudas are also quite numerous, and in different treasure text practices there are also many of them. Some are Dharma protectors and some are noble beings. Then the text speaks of the Kinnaras. Kinnaras are those beings we call non-humans. We have briefly covered these classes before. They appear somewhat human in form, but they are not identical to humans in all respects. They have horns on their heads and their behaviors are different. Sometimes we may encounter them. If one has clairvoyance or specific karmic connections, one will often see these sentient beings. Then there are the Mahoragas. Mahoragas can also be called belly crawlers. In Tibetan, they are called Dorje Chenpo, meaning great belly crawlers. They can also be called great serpent deities. In appearance, they are similar to the pythons we know today. In reality, the categories of these different forms are not completely fixed. Among those in the human world, they can belong to any of the 6 realms. Some belong to the celestial realm, some belong to the naga class among the animals, some belong among the asuras, and some also belong among the animals. This is what we learn when we read different scriptures. If we separate the devas and the nagas in the list above, then there are the 8 classes of celestial and naga beings. All these beings of the 8 classes also came to the scene to listen to the Dharma. In fact, it is not only when the Buddha was teaching the Dharma that the 8 classes and celestial beings were present. These other beings also come forward to receive the Dharma. When other eminent monastics and great masters teach the Buddhist Dharma, this also occurs. When I first came to the Buddhist Academy in 1985, His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok said, "Our Buddhist Academy is very large now, with close to 300 people." I looked around and saw nowhere near 300 people. Then 1 or 2 years later, His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok said during a Dharma assembly, "Every time we report the number of monastics, we should report a larger number because there are many beings from the 8 classes among us, including many beings our physical eyes cannot see." At that moment I thought, so that is what the Guru meant when he said 300. I thought that the teacher must have been counting the 8 classes, humans and non-humans all together. If all of those were counted, the number would be well over 300. That was what I thought to myself at the time. Indeed, sometimes our physical eyes cannot see them, even now as we study the Vimalakirti Sutra. If I use inferential reasoning to deduce it, I am certain many beings from the 8 classes are also listening. They also receive the teaching in different forms and in different ways. This is something that many people should understand. Some who may have a bit of clairvoyance can certainly see this through direct perception. If one does not have such abilities, one can know it through inference and scriptural authority. Therefore, when we hold various Dharma ceremonies, there are also offerings made to the Dharma protectors, including the recitation of literature liturgies and various rituals. This is the reason for all of these practices. Thus, at the time when the Buddha was present, bodhisattvas and the celestial beings mentioned earlier, with the celestial realm divided into several categories, along with naga kings and others, the beings of this world gathered there. Some people might think, are these spirits and deities a kind of superstition? They surely cannot exist. Perhaps some people think this way, but in fact this view is based on the fact that one has not personally seen them. That is the reason for such a statement. Because in this world, whether in the West or the East, no matter where one is, if one does not acknowledge any beings besides humans and animals, then I am afraid that in this world one would have to live with eyes closed and ears covered. Beyond that, there may be no other option. This includes when you are ill, when you have nightmares, or in various other experiences. This also includes obvious cases of spirit possession and how accidents often occur in certain dangerous places. In truth, in this world, there are very many non-human beings, spirits and deities. They absolutely exist. So we often recite burnt offering rituals or the Avalokitesvara heart mantra. Even just turning a prayer wheel brings benefit to these non-human beings, those in the hungry ghost realm and those among the spirits and deities. These practices are of tremendous help to these beings. Therefore, when we are teaching and studying the Dharma, do not think that only what you see and hear counts, while acknowledging nothing else. If one takes a purely materialist view of everything, there are still many hidden things we cannot see or hear. For now, these can only be explained on a theoretical level. However, when you truly come into contact with these matters, you will discover some of their profound significance. Only then can they be explained clearly. Next, we see that among the humans present in the Buddha's retinue were bhiksus, bhikshunis, upasakas, and upasikas. These are known as the fourfold assembly of the Buddha. All of them had arrived here. I will not introduce them in detail, as everyone should know they are called the fourfold disciples. At this time, countless tens of millions of beings surrounded the Buddha with boundless reverence and joy. The Buddha also taught the Dharma to them. This scene was supremely magnificent and solemn. What was it like? It was like Mount Sumeru, standing majestically in the midst of the great ocean. Where was the Buddha seated? He was seated upon a lion throne composed of various precious jewels. At this time, the Buddha's radiance shone in all directions. Although other celestial beings and bodhisattvas all possess different degrees of their own luminosity, when their light is compared with the radiance of the Buddha, it is like the sun and moon obscuring the light of fireflies, or it is like the radiant autumn moon on a clear night, which completely outshines the light of every star in the sky. Just like the starlight is eclipsed, the Buddha's radiance obscured the luminosity of the entire assembly. Their light simply could not be compared to that of the Buddha. This means that in such a vast and magnificent setting, the Buddha appeared supremely majestic and dignified. I sometimes think about this myself. I have attended many great Dharma ceremonies held by masters, including the great Sukhavati assembly held by His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche in 1993, which took place in the valley below Larangar. At that time, it was truly remarkable. There were different accounts, and some said hundreds of thousands attended. Regardless of the number, the scene was truly spectacular. Some of you may have seen the photographs. The white tents alone were like heavy snowfall across an endless grassland. It gave a sense of a vast expanse of white. The crowds at that time were extraordinarily immense. Sometimes we look at other countries where Buddhism flourishes, such as Myanmar, Thailand, and Sri Lanka. In some of their very grand settings, the entire Buddhist assembly, including both lay people and monastics, with a Dharma master teaching in their midst, is truly magnificent even from a modern perspective. Of course, these are more recent examples. These are only scenes from our Buddhist communities today. However, the scene at the time of the Buddha was even more inconceivable and unimaginably grand. This describes the retinue surrounding the Buddha mentioned earlier. As we discussed the Vimalakirti Sutra, it was in such a setting that these circumstances arose. Now, in the city of Vaisali, there was an elder son. An elder generally refers to a person of great merit, wisdom, and talent. There was a prominent elder son named Ratnakara. Many of the dialogues in the Ratnakara Sutra are actually between the Buddha and Bodhisattva Ratnakara. He is actually a manifestation of a Bodhisattva. Furthermore, other sources mention that layman Vimalakirti and the elder son Ratnakara were very close. They often went before the Buddha together to listen to the Mahayana Dharma. On this occasion, layman Vimalakirti was already ill. Bodhisattva Ratnakara was preparing to request a turning of the Dharma wheel. However, it is not apparent here, as he was not seated among the ranks of the Bodhisattvas. Instead, he brought 500 elders' sons. In modern terms, these 500 sons might be called the second generation wealthy or elite. They were individuals with wealth, ability, and influence. They were the most outstanding and powerful people of their time. They were likely the most elite individuals from various nations. The eldest son Ratnakara brought these people. What were they all holding together? They each held a canopy made of the 7 precious jewels. Perhaps each person was holding one such canopy. The scene was truly magnificent. They arrived at the place where the Buddha was. Each of them bowed their heads and paid most reverent prostrations at the Buddha's lotus feet. Each of them took their precious canopy and joyfully offered it to our teacher, Sakyamuni Buddha. This is truly an act of great merit, to have had such an opportunity to make offerings before the Buddha. Sometimes when we read the words of the sutras, we feel a sense of regret for ourselves. We regret not being there as a human to see the Buddha. We feel that even if we had been an ant at that time, or any other small sentient being, we would have at least heard the Buddha's voice. The same applies to Bodhisattva Nagarjuna and Bodhisattva Shantideva. To have heard their voices would also have been a sign of great merit. I often have this kind of thought. At that time they began to offer those jeweled canopies to the Buddha. Making such an offering to the Buddha brings tremendous merit. The Karmavibhanga Sutra also discusses making offerings to the Buddha. Offering a jeweled canopy to the Buddha carries 10 kinds of merit. For example, the mind becomes peaceful and calm. One is respected by all and has a good reputation spread far and wide. The sutra describes 10 such kinds of merit. Therefore, when we have the opportunity, although we may not be able to see the actual Buddha today, we can still make offerings in our own shrine rooms. We can place a jeweled canopy above a Buddha statue. Most people probably know what a jeweled canopy is. It is like an ornamental parasol. An ordinary umbrella is different from the parasol found among the 8 auspicious symbols. When welcoming eminent monks in the Han tradition, or when His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche used to visit monasteries, some people would make especially large jeweled canopies. They were so large that the people following behind could barely keep up. If the vehicle drove a bit fast, they could not keep pace. Those canopies were truly enormous in size. This tradition of using jeweled canopies was apparently a custom even during the Buddha's time. It continues to be practiced to this day. Sometimes in our own shrine rooms at home, if circumstances allow, we can place one above the main statue of Shakyamuni Buddha. We can also place them above statues of the Jowo or Guru Rinpoche, or above other statues of the Buddha. Placing a jeweled canopy of an appropriate size will generate tremendous merit for the practitioner. Why is it that some people today are respected by everyone they meet? Their reputation is excellent, everyone treats them with great reverence, and their own state of mind is very positive. Actually, this is due to the merit accumulated in past lives. On the other hand, for some people, everyone tramples on them and looks down on them. Nothing they say carries any weight or influence. This is the karmic result of being arrogant in the past and constantly bullying or belittling others. These are the inevitable results of cause and effect. Let us continue with the teaching. Through the Buddha's spiritual power, all the canopies merged into one. This merged canopy was enormous in scale. It covered the entire trichiliocosm. Within it, all the vast features of this world appeared. The vast features of countless Saha worlds were shown. They were all reflected and displayed within it. This rare and wondrous scene began to manifest. Then Mount Sumeru and the snowy mountains of the trichiliocosm appeared. Those who have studied the Abhidharma Kosha or other treatises will be familiar with this. Many different worlds were displayed within this great canopy. The Mount Sumeru of that time appeared, as well as Mount Muchilinda and Mount Mahamuchilinda, and the fragrant, jewel, golden, and black mountains. There were also the Iron Ring and Great Iron Ring mountains. The great oceans, rivers, streams, and springs were visible. The sun, moon, stars, celestial palaces, and naga palaces appeared. The palaces of other venerable deities were also present. All were displayed within this single jeweled canopy. All aspects of the worlds just mentioned were shown, including Mount Sumeru, the oceans, and the stars. It is comparable to what we call virtual reality or VR screens today. When we encounter such things, we might find it difficult to comprehend their true nature. So sometimes one thinks the Buddha's spiritual power is truly inconceivable in its manifestations. On the other hand, the worlds created by people in modern times can also manifest within a virtual realm. Kumarajiva also explained the reasons why these scenes manifested. One reason is the Buddha's inconceivable power of wisdom. This is truly beyond comprehension. The Buddha spoke of this profound wisdom. Another reason is that past virtuous actions ultimately bore marvelous and magnificent fruit. These two key aspects are all manifested within this canopy. Furthermore, all Buddhas of the 10 directions appeared within that canopy. It did not only display boundless worlds, but it also displayed all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Buddhas were present in their various Buddha lands across the north, south, east, west, the four corners, and above and below. They were teaching the Dharma to beings throughout the 10 directions. The entire scene of their Dharma teachings could be seen completely within this manifestation. Master Sengzhao also addressed this point. He asked why the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions appeared. The main reason for this display was to inspire the Bodhisattvas to purify their own Buddha lands. The Buddha was giving them a clear direction and providing them with a profound reminder. Why did the Buddha display this before them? It was so that these Bodhisattvas, especially those who had not yet purified a Buddha land, would have the noble goal of land purification clearly pointed out. That was the underlying reason. At that moment when the Buddha displayed such inconceivable miraculous transformations, the entire assembly, including the 8 classes of celestial and naga beings, as well as humans and bodhisattvas, witnessed the Buddha's great power and majesty. Everyone praised this as a sight never before seen. In many different languages, they praised the enlightened qualities of the Buddha. Everyone joined their palms in reverence and prostrated. The humans joined their palms. The celestial beings also joined their palms. The Naga kings and others expressed their deep respect through their own unique forms. They all gazed with utmost reverence at the Buddha's countenance. They looked on without blinking, completely captivated by the Buddha's magnificence. Indeed, one's faith can be seen within one's gaze. When many people first attend a teaching, they look on very attentively, but gradually they begin to drift off to sleep. At that time, the Buddha displayed these miraculous transformations for all to see. The Buddha's inconceivable power was revealed, manifesting before the entire multitude. Many sutras describe similar auspicious circumstances, allowing beings to behold the various worlds of the 10 directions. Following this, the elder's son Ratnakara began to offer verses of praise before the Buddha. First, Ratnakara made a material offering of the jeweled canopies. Now he offers the gift of Dharma. These are offerings of wealth and Dharma. Initially, he offered with his body, presenting canopies adorned with precious gems, joined by his 500 followers. Now he praises the Buddha through his speech. He also praises the Buddha with his mind. This represents the way Bodhisattva Ratnakara makes offerings through his body, speech, and mind. We should also do the same at times. If we wish to make offerings to the Buddha or the 3 jewels, we can offer physical prostrations, as well as fresh flowers and fine incense. Then with our speech we can recite hymns of praise and sacred liturgies. In our minds we can also contribute. If we have the ability, composing songs of praise to the three jewels is excellent. In our Tibetan Buddhist tradition, many great masters have composed verses to honor the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. I have seen this in the works of Mifam Rinpoche and Tsongkhapa, as well as Longchenpa and Jigme Lingpa and Patrul Rinpoche. A significant portion of their collected writings is dedicated to praising the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Why do we engage in these practices? It is to accumulate merit and to ensure our virtuous roots endure life after life. This is a noble use of our precious human rebirth. Engaging in these acts is highly worthwhile. If you have a talent for writing, consider composing your own praises of the Buddha. In the past, Ashvaghosha and Nagarjuna wrote profound works specifically to honor him. If you possess good literary skills, you can express this devotion in any language. Even if your work is not published or famous, it remains meaningful. 30 years ago, I wrote a verse at Mount Wutai. For 3 decades, no one read it. Eventually, I returned to Mount Wutai and recited it for others. Afterward, people simply drifted off to sleep again. If the author is not well known, your writing might not gain much attention. But reading and reciting it for yourself is still virtuous. It still serves to accumulate merit. When it comes to honoring the Buddha, Bodhisattva Ratnakara used sublime words to express the devotion of his body, speech, and mind. With truly remarkable content, he offered his praise in this manner. Such devotion is truly essential. Those of us with pleasant voices should frequently sing praises to the Buddha. This tradition exists in both the Han and Tibetan regions. In the past, His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche would often ask us to write praises for Manjushri, Sarasvati, and Shakyamuni Buddha. I initially intended to write many, but later my path changed. After visiting Mount Wutai, I was asked to teach Han Chinese students. That took up a vast amount of my time, especially since I had no prior foundation in Chinese. Consequently, much of my Tibetan writing came to a complete halt out of necessity. Otherwise, had I focused more on that area, I might have produced more work. I truly wish to praise the Buddha and Manjushri. I have written some pieces in Tibetan, but very few in the grand scheme of things. Many other Khenpos at our institute have also written numerous praises of the Buddha and the Bodhisattvas. The merit of doing this is truly immense. As stated in the treatise on the great perfection of wisdom, one praises the myriad virtues of the Buddha so that they are heard by all throughout the world. As a result of this karmic fruit, one attains great renown and honor. If these praises of the Buddha are heard by many people, then by virtue of such supreme karmic results, one's good reputation will spread far and wide through every life. One will never suffer from a bad reputation or infamy. Some of us may not be actively seeking fame, but having a good name is sometimes necessary. A single word from a person of good reputation carries more weight than 100 words from someone unknown. There is indeed a significant difference between the two. So in this world, such a reputation is sometimes essential. We should also take the opportunity to praise the Buddha. There are many traditional verses dedicated to this purpose. In the Han tradition, these are found within the sutras. The Abhiniskramana Sutra states, "In the heavens and on earth, nothing compares to the Buddha. Throughout the 10 directions, he is without equal. Of all I have seen in the world, none can compare to the Buddha." There are many such verses in the Han tradition. I recall they are also included in the daily liturgies. Many monastics and lay people know how to chant them. However, this is not necessarily true for everyone. Our own recitation liturgies also contain verses similar to these.
There
are indeed many such praises of the Buddha. Reciting these verses actually brings immense merit. We should recite them ourselves whenever we have free time. The following section is Bodhisattva Ratnakara's praise of the Buddha. The content is truly wonderful. What is the theme of this first verse of praise? It honors the Buddha's physical form and enlightened mind, as well as the virtuous karma he accumulated in past lives. It praises him from these various perspectives. Regarding the physical form, the Buddha's eyes are pure and elongated, resembling the blue lotus flowers of India. In a blue lotus, the blue and white parts are clearly distinct. When we see someone who is remarkably handsome, their eyes appear very bright and well defined. The pupils and the whites are perfectly clear, just as they are for the Tathagata. This appearance of the Tathagata is evident even in Buddha statues. Even when we enter a state of meditation, the eyes should not be completely closed. It is best to keep them half closed, as seen in the statues. That is a better way to practice. If you close them completely, you might not notice a significant difference at first. However, it is generally best for one's practice to do it this way, following the example set by the Buddha statues. This is a key characteristic of his physical magnificence. His mind is also free from all obscurations, having attained purity and reached the other shore. The term crossing here refers to reaching the other shore. He has left behind all worldly states of bliss, clarity, and non-thought. He has attained the highest transcendent meditative absorption. So what gave rise to such physical glory and mental purity? Where does it originate? It comes from accumulating pure karma over immeasurable kalpas. He created pure virtuous karma throughout 3 incalculable kalpas. And through this peaceful dharma, what was the result? He has guided boundless and limitless sentient beings. Therefore I bow my head in prostration before such a Buddha. To bow the head means to prostrate. Thus, recitation in our daily practice is also very important. As Buddhists, we should understand what the Buddha is truly like. His form is magnificent and his mind is pure. What kind of virtuous karma has he created since beginningless time to manifest this magnificent form adorned with all marks of excellence? This describes the Buddha's magnificence. Next, we praise the Buddha's miraculous transformations. We have seen the great sage perform such miracles today. Countless jeweled canopies merged into a single canopy, encompassing the entire trichiliocosm. Within it, all limitless Buddha lands are displayed everywhere. In every one of these limitless lands, in each and every single world, countless Buddhas are proclaiming the profound Dharma. All of these scenes are happening right now. We are witnessing all this before us, while hearing every word the Buddha speaks. This is something ordinary people of the world cannot accomplish. Clearly, the Buddha possesses boundless power and miraculous abilities. Ordinary worldly people often place great faith in spiritual powers. If someone can produce wondrous displays or transformations, they believe deeply. But those with genuine wisdom believe in the Buddha's correct Dharma. As for manifesting spiritual powers and miracles, other religions have these as well. So this might not be the most distinctive quality of a Buddha. Yet to attract sentient beings and to help them safeguard their minds, the Buddha also manifests such miraculous transformations. Occasionally, this is truly very necessary. Next, we speak of the Buddha being called the King of Dharma. He is so named because he has attained mastery over all phenomena. He is just like a king who holds all power completely in his own hands. The King of Dharma, the Buddha, uses the power of the Dharma to transcend all sentient beings. And what method does he use to transcend them? He does so through the gift of Dharma. He is constantly giving the wealth of the Dharma as a gift. In this context, Dharma wealth does not mean that Dharma giving and material giving are two separate things. It primarily refers to the act of bestowing the treasure of the Buddha's teachings upon all sentient beings. What is the actual content of this Dharma giving? It is the ability to skillfully distinguish all phenomena. This pertains to the level of conventional truth. On the level of conventional truth, all the specific characteristics, general characteristics, and classifications of phenomena, including their defining marks, are all understood perfectly and without any confusion. Regarding the conventional level, all phenomena are perceived clearly by the wisdom that knows the full extent of reality. All things on the conventional level are explained with absolute precision and clarity. The Buddha is able to distinguish them skillfully. In fact, whether from the perspective of psychology or physiology, much of what is described in the Buddhist sutras is remarkably clear within the worldly realm. Then, from the ultimate perspective, he remains unmoved within the ultimate truth. This means that by knowing the ultimate truth, the Dharma nature of all phenomena remains unshakable. The Dharma nature of all phenomena, whether a Tathagata appears in the world or not, remains utterly unshakable, exactly as it is. This ultimate meaning is also explained to sentient beings with great clarity. The principles of the Dharma of emptiness, taught through the turning of the Dharma wheel, cover both conventional reality and the ultimate truth of emptiness. All of these are explained with perfect clarity. The Buddha has attained complete mastery over these teachings. Therefore, Bodhisattva Ratnakara bows to the Buddha as the King of Dharma in the most reverent manner. Regarding the following two lines, they appear in the Tibetan text and in Jiqian's translation. This includes the preceding four lines. Xuanzang and Kumarajiva both place these two lines at the end, but the essential meaning remains the same. In fact, if the wording above were condensed slightly with mastery over the Dharma placed first, followed by bowing in prostration, that would also be quite convenient, but the current way is also fine. Different translations simply have their own unique styles. Looking at all these different translation methods, we cannot say that one is right and another is wrong. Every Bodhisattva translator actually has their own profound intention. They each have their own specific purpose. Therefore, every version is entirely reasonable. The Buddha benefits all beings through the Dharma. What makes him different from others? What is the primary praise of the Buddha here? Of course, the Buddha's magnificence and his miracles are also very important. But even more crucial is that the Buddha benefits beings through the power of the Dharma. I am not sure if we have quoted this before, but I believe I posted it on Weibo. Tsongkhapa once said that the Buddha does not wash away the negative karma of beings with water, nor does the Buddha remove their suffering with his hands. The Buddha does not simply transfer his own realizations to others. His sole method of guiding sentient beings is by proclaiming the truth of reality. He benefits beings by proclaiming the true nature of the Dharma. This particular teaching is very important in our Tibetan tradition. On my Tibetan Weibo account, I often enjoy posting verses that I can recite from memory. Today, I thought to myself I should post the first verse in both Tibetan and Chinese. It is very well expressed. I had not memorized it very well in the past. I am familiar with the Tibetan text, but I have not memorized it perfectly. I am not sure if I can recite it correctly right now. I will look it over again when I have time. This teaching comes from Tsongkhapa's The Great Treatise on the Stages of the Path to Enlightenment. It is a quote frequently cited by many great Tibetan masters. Indeed, the way the Buddha benefits sentient beings is not through any other means, but entirely through teaching and proclaiming the Dharma. As for those of us who follow, including Buddhists who wish to benefit others through the Dharma, the most fundamental task is to help them understand the teachings. Sometimes this means teaching them conventional Dharma, which are simpler teachings, and sometimes it means teaching ultimate Dharma. If you personally are unable to teach, then you should let those who are qualified teachers speak. If you let these people teach, it will be of great significance for all beings. The point I am making to everyone today is that what we call Buddhism must be regarded as a very important educational system. Do not regard it as a mere liturgical theology or as something that relies solely on divine power to remove the illnesses and suffering of beings. It is not like that at all. If it were truly like that, it would be wonderful. But in reality, that is not the case. Therefore, this principle is very important. What is the Dharma that the Buddha taught actually like? The Dharma taught by the Buddha is not something that is permanent. It does not fall into the extreme of eternalism. nor is it non-existent, so it does not fall into the extreme of nihilism. Then what is the nature of this Dharma? On the ultimate level, it is truly free from all conceptual elaborations. On the conventional level, things can only arise when the necessary causes and conditions are fully complete. Therefore, within the Buddha's Dharma, there is no inherent self, no creator, and no independent experiencer. What remains as the sole reality? The power of virtuous and non-virtuous karma will never be exhausted. This is the most fundamental principle in Buddhism. All phenomena avoid the extreme of permanence as well as the extreme of nihilism. While they are certainly empty on the ultimate level, they continue to manifest on the conventional level. As the Entering the Middle Way states, although all phenomena are empty, they still arise from within emptiness. Since both truths lack self-nature, they are neither nihilistic nor permanent. In fact, the very foundation of the Buddha's teaching should be understood exactly in this way. Although all phenomena are empty, they still appear from within that state of emptiness. This is how we should understand the Buddha's Dharma. We also cited this point a few days ago. It is the principle of being neither permanent nor nihilistic found at the end of the clear words. I noticed that during the study sessions for the nuns, they cited Master Taishu's teaching on this middle way. I did not listen to the entire session at the time, but the explanation provided was quite good. It was very similar to the 5 dharmas we taught during that period. The Indian master Chandrakirti also explained this principle of neither permanence nor nihilism with great clarity. In the past, the Vinaya master Daoxuan authored a text called The Method of Contemplating Precepts for a Pure Mind. This work is somewhat comparable to Nagarjuna's letter to a friend. It is very similar to the letter to a friend, being a letter addressed to another person. I recall there is a specific line in that text that says, "Though no self enters the Dharma, virtue and non-virtue do not perish. Samsara in the 3 realms is bitter, and birth and death in the 6 realms are long." The verses become very rhythmic toward the end. Wandering through the 3 realms of samsara is pure suffering, and the cycle of birth and death in the 6 realms is exceptionally long. If we have not yet attained liberation, this is our true reality. Although the self and phenomena do not inherently exist on the level of appearance, as long as we have not realized the selflessness of persons and phenomena, the karmic consequences of our actions will certainly manifest before us. Master Yongjia says in the Song of Enlightenment, "In the dream, the 6 realms exist clearly. After awakening, the whole universe is empty." Just as the Master said, while we are within the dream, everything in the dream of samsara appears to be completely real. However, once you truly awaken, the entire trichiliocosm and everything within it cease to exist. But it is very difficult for us to reach such a profound state. Therefore, we must still practice with great diligence. Next, the text discusses the following. It speaks of the time of the Buddha. The following passage describes his realization. It essentially covers the 12 acts of the Buddha. While the Buddha was seated beneath the Bodhi tree, he subdued all demonic forces through his 10 powers and his wisdom. And what was it that he attained? It was like the nectar of immortality. He realized the path of peaceful and silent enlightenment. In this state of realization, there is actually no mind, no consciousness, and no experiencer. This is quite unlike the so-called creator found in non-Buddhist traditions. Such a thing does not exist. If there were truly a creator of the world, why would he create people who must beg? Why would he create suffering beings? That should not happen. If he did, such a creator would be completely lacking in compassion. If they clearly possess such authority and power, they would not allow it. But in reality, it does not work this way. The attainment of the Buddha is of a different nature entirely. The text says, "He utterly vanquished all non-Buddhist paths." Regarding the vanquishing mentioned here, the Tibetan text and Xuanzang's translation both state, "The non-Buddhist paths and their errors cannot fathom it." This means that those on non-Buddhist paths cannot comprehend the principle of having no consciousness and no experiencer. They cannot understand that kind of truth. The Buddha's manner of vanquishing them is not through weapons or missiles. It is not like the more than 100 missiles fired at Syria. Those were referred to as precision strikes. Trump posted precision strikes on Twitter. They say they must be precise and they must strike. Missiles from the UK, the US, and France were all involved. Some reports say they were intercepted, while others say they were not. In any case, this is a very frightening thing. One still doesn't know if a real world war will ever break out. But as for the Buddha's so-called subjugation, as we discussed before, one must first subdue the self. Then all external demons and celestial demons naturally dissolve away. Therefore, the Buddha's non-violent and compassionate method of subjugation can be seen elsewhere, showing what it is truly like. So the Buddha's attainment of enlightenment truly has great significance. Regarding the 12 acts, when I taught them at Yale University, it happened to be the day of the Buddha's descent from the heavens. I felt that the auspicious coincidence of those circumstances was wonderful. They requested a teaching on the 12 acts of the Buddha. Is there a written record of that teaching available now? There isn't one yet, is there? It seems we didn't produce a transcript at the time. There might be something included in the university lectures now. In the past, during our summer retreats in Tibetan area, we would often teach the 12 acts of the Buddha. We would teach through the night on the final evening of the retreat. There was a particular traditional method used to teach it back then. So our Dharma friends here should at least come to understand the Buddha's 12 acts in the future. Otherwise, as a Buddhist practitioner, if you do not know the entire sequence from his birth to his final nirvana, if you have not learned these deeds, well, in the Tibetan tradition, many of my teachers in the past placed special emphasis on this knowledge. Even those who were not very proficient in complex scriptures would at least be able to teach the 12 acts of the Buddha. This is a very important foundation. As for the last verse, let us go through it, and that will conclude today's schedule. According to my plan, there are still 2 more verses to cover. Let's teach them anyway. After all, you have nothing else to do but sleep. What kind of Dharma did the Buddha teach? After attaining full realization, he turned the wheel of Dharma 3 times within the entire trichiliocosm. The first was the wheel of the 4 noble truths. The second was the wheel of emptiness. The third was the wheel of the absolute nature. Regarding these wheels of Dharma, in their original pure state, there is actually nothing to be said, and no one saying it. The Buddha also stated in certain sutras, "From the day of my enlightenment until my nirvana, I have not spoken a single word." It is only a display manifested for the sake of sentient beings. So, in their essence, all the wheels of Dharma turned by the Buddha are pure. However, on the level of appearance, before us humans and celestial beings, they manifest fully so that we may attain realization. During the first turning, the 5 monks and 80,000 devas attained realization. Of course, some accounts differ. For instance, Master Jizang says that only Kaundinya, among the 5 monks, attained the first fruit. The others did not reach a specific stage of fruition at that time. There are various accounts such as these. Regardless, during the second turning of the Wheel of Dharma, which took place on Vulture Peak, many bodhisattvas attained various levels of fruition. The third turning of the wheel was the same, and so, before the assembly of beings, they had all already attained the unsurpassable fruit of realization. From that time forward, the Buddha jewel appeared in the world. The Dharma jewel, consisting of the teachings he gave, also appeared. As for the Sangha jewel, the monastic community formed later with the 5 monks at its core. Thus, the 3 jewels have manifested in this world. Because the Buddha turned the wheel of Dharma, most historical calculations differ slightly, but according to certain Theravada traditions, this year is the 2562nd year of the Buddhist calendar. That is how the date is calculated in the Buddhist calendar. From that point on, the 3 jewels have been present in this world. Because the Buddha turned the wheel of Dharma, as stated in the final verse for today, through this wondrous Dharma, all beings are rescued and liberated. He saves and guides beings through this sublime teaching. This method of guidance differs from that of some non-Buddhist paths. Once received, there is no falling back. Once a person accepts this Dharma, they will not suddenly reach a high state of realization and then regress back into an ordinary being. There is no such reversal or regression. Instead, one can always abide peacefully in luminous wisdom that is free from conceptual thought. He can completely liberate beings from the suffering of birth, aging, illness, and death. Therefore, the Buddha is known as the great physician king. Ordinary worldly physicians may be able to remove illnesses of the physical body, but to completely treat the disease of fundamental ignorance within the mind, that is an extremely difficult task. So at that time, Ratnakara most reverently prostrated through body, speech, and mind. The ocean of his merit and virtue is without bounds. This means that his merit is truly limitless. In Xuanzang's version, I bow my head to the ocean of boundless merit. The Tibetan version is also quite clear on this point. The essential meaning is that the Buddha possesses boundless merit. Why is this said here? The praise is offered from the perspective of the physician king as he severs birth, aging, illness, and death. The Avatamsaka Sutra says, he knows the illnesses of beings and their origins. He knows the remedies to remove all doubts. The Buddha skillfully knows the illnesses of beings, which is the truth of suffering. The Buddha knows exactly how these illnesses arise. This is knowing the truth of origin. And furthermore, the Buddha fully understands how to remedy the truth of suffering and the truth of origin. This is knowing the truth of the path. Then, by following the path of practice, one can eliminate all afflictions and doubts. This is known as realizing the truth of cessation. Based on the scriptural authority of the Avatamsaka Sutra, the Buddha stands in clear distinction from any other religious leader in this world. At the most fundamental level, as we often discuss, the dependent origination and emptiness proclaimed by the Buddha are supremely excellent. The teachings on the Four Noble Truths are also supremely excellent. The 12 links of dependent origination taught by the Buddha are truly wonderful. Therefore, as a Buddhist practitioner, if you cannot manage to study broadly and extensively, you should at least understand the 12 links of dependent origination. You must understand the Four Noble Truths. And what else must you understand? The profound principle of dependent origination and emptiness. These few points are extremely crucial. In the Tibetan tradition, there are specific and detailed commentaries on both the 12 links of dependent origination and the Four Noble Truths. Although there are many commentaries, their essential meanings are fairly similar. As long as we penetrate one, it is easy to understand the others by analogy. All other principles can be inferred from this foundation. For a Buddhist, simply holding a refuge certificate and considering oneself a Buddhist is not enough. If you have no experience of emptiness in your mind stream and no firm conviction in the laws of karma on the conventional level, that is truly not acceptable. It seems I tend to point out faults quite often, while speaking of good qualities a bit less. But if qualities are already present, there is no need to elaborate on them. It is more helpful to identify the faults. I myself have many faults. However, it is precisely because one has faults that one is able to see the faults in others. If one were completely without any faults, one would not be able to perceive them in others. So generally, those who like to point out faults likely have more faults themselves. Through this observation, you can also infer the nature of the person speaking to you. Those with impure minds can figure this out. Those who have studied logic can also make this inference. That is also very good. We will end our session here for today. I may have talked slightly longer than planned, but that is quite all right.
Kirgana jirano chupai chupun zonen droadrasya
Bandangara Badna Sadarda Bandangara Badna Sada Bandangara Badna Sadarda